Good morning, um, Fido Master John Curtis. I'm going to go into chess.com and play some live chess once I sign in. Ha! Hey, where are we? This morning I'll probably be playing like maybe 3 1 hour sessions live on Twitch from chess.com. I've got to get into the that's the beginners section for chess.com. You can go in chess.com and play as a guest if you like. You can see there's got one for beginner, one for new to chess. So if you're just a real beginner and you want the basics, you can click on that there. Or you can go to intermediate, or if you're an advanced player and you're not a member of chess.com and you just want to find out how to play, well then you can go in there and sign up and test the system and see what all the benefits are in the system to a degree, and then you can choose whether you'd like to join or not. Right. I think I've got, and you can play the computer. You can see if you go in there as a beginner, it's free. It's free to go in there to test the system, and you can play a chess computer, and you can pick one of your opponents. You've got Jimmy, he's rated 600. So if I was to play Jimmy, who's rated 600, you can choose whether you want to get hints to help you find a move, and it's got a few little benefits there that you can look at yourself and navigate your way through. You can see the great Hikaru is streaming at the moment, as is Anna Chess and Chess Bra. So you can see that on the board there. Right, so I'm going to go back now to chess.com on Google, because I'm being a member. I just wanted to right, where are we? There it is. Login. See, I'm a member. Oh, as you can see, I'm named the Magician. That's my handle on chess.com. I'm the Magician. And I named myself after Mikhail Tal when I was I always liked him. And so when in the early formation of chess.com, I named myself the Magician after Mikhail Tal. See, Strobex wants to be friends. Of course, we can be friends with Strobex. We will link him in as a friend after the first session today. So we're going into live chess. And we're only just starting the stream, so we might play a slower game. Right, so what should we play? A 10-minute game, how's that? And we'll play open challenges. And we'll choose someone that might want to have a game that's lower rated, that doesn't normally get a chance to play somebody. Oh, look at this. This is a 267 his rating is. And I've got to look at the position. And so I said hello to him. I was saying, I'm here to teach you, right? Now I'm streaming live on Twitch. So I always like to give time. Chess gives me a lot, and I like to give a lot back to chess players. And so I'm happy to go down there and play beginners and make them enjoy their chess a lot more. So I'm going to play. I'm trying to find a square. Oh, he didn't want to play, so I'll play someone else. Was he a good sport? Yeah, he's a good sport. He's probably just overwhelmed by my challenge. So I'll go back. New game. But where are you? See, new game. We're going to play. Still want to play a 10-minute game. Just relax as I get. Customize the game. Standard. I want to play a standard game. And up to minus 400 on the rating, and only plus 25, so that I give someone a chance to win. Right, okay, so I'm playing Collega. Some people don't like to chat, but we're just playing an ordinary game, a Sicilian, and he's 1979, so he's a fairly good player, and he obviously likes a 10-minute game. So he'll be very, very competitive in this game. In 1979, I don't know about overseas chess, but you would be the level of a reasonably good club player at 1979. You might be the bottom of your A grade team or something like that, but you would be a fairly competent player. Right, now he wants to play E5. And I don't want him to play that. I can bring the knight back and stop him playing it. But then he would just play d4 and get an excellent game. So I'm going to move my bishop over here to g4, pin his knight against his queen, and suppress the e5 move, which he's prepared. Gives him, he can just play h3 now, and if I take the knight, well, he's just got control of the white squares, and maybe I can just fight for control of the black squares. It'll be an uphill battle, but at least we'll show you then a few of the basic elements of the game. So his last move is d3. That was just a little bit passive. I'd like to play d5, but if I play queen here, he's got that g5. I don't know. I think I can. I wonder if I can get away with it. I'll play b6. It's an anti-move, b6. But if he plays the wrong move, which he did, he should have played h3 and controlled his white squares. But now I can play the freeing move, d5. His position is more sound, more fundamentally sound, but by the same token, my position, I'm going to get my rook on the A file to c8. My position is more dynamically playable, if I can put it that way. So I'll take his knight, because that's 4. So to go back would be just bad. And defeat the whole purpose of the line. Yeah, so in this position, I'm trying to find a way to open up my black squares and to cause him trouble. One way to do that is to just simply take that pawn and hope that he takes back with the pawn. His best move is to probably take back with the knight. Takes back with the knight, of course. He's got the backward d pawn. Not that I can do anything much about it. But it means that I've completed my development and I've got at least an equal game. Right, now his strength is the white squares. So I've got an opportunity here to do something to open him up a little bit. So I can't miss this opportunity. I'm going to play knight to d4. Now, the whole point of that was I looked at this possibility way back when I played rook to c8. And that was, if he captures the knight, I can recapture the pawn on his queen, attacking his queen with the castle and attacking his bishop. And his bishop, as we discussed, his bishop on e3 is the bishop that controls the black squares. And I did say that it was really all about a battle of the black and white squares. So it's fundamental in chess to understand that. So I'm taking back, now I'm hitting the bishop and completing what my program for my game is to cause him as much trouble on the black squares as possible. Now, here we go. If he takes with the pawn, his king is sort of weak. The pawn on g3, being on the black square near his king, and isolated, that is not supported by the pawn on f2, would be a target maybe later on in the game. Okay, so we've got that target. Also, when we look at this position, we now have three sets of pawn islands. We've got the H file, pawn on the H file on H3, we've got the pawn on G3, and pawns on E3 and D3, another island, and then finally we've got the pawns on B2 and A2, and that's the third island, right? Because there's three sets of pawns, and I've got just two sets of pawns, and so I can elect to do one of several things here. I can move my knight to D5 and just put pressure on, but his knight can't do that much, but my knight can't do too much there either. Might be able to get some combinations going. It might be easier for him to defend if I just take the knight. What would Chessbra do? What would Hikaru do here? I think they would play knight to d5. But then again, I'm not them. Knight to d5 is interesting because he may make a blunder here. Knight takes knight allows him to sort of bunker down, and it might be harder to get in there and grab him, whereas he's restricted. There's a trap there in this position for young players. There's a trap, so he has to be a bit wary. I couldn't see much progress for his knight on e4, other than the fact that it protects the pawn on g3. Yes, this is the way he plays it. Now, have a look at this. In chess, you examine all checks and examine all captures, right? So I'm examining the capture. I've got one capture at the moment. Rook takes rook. Now, what happens when the rook takes back? Well, if I then examine in my mind one move in front, I'll show you what happens. I've already seen these three moves in front, so I'm just going to take that rook. Okay. And now I examine all checks and examine all captures. There's no checks, but I can see that the knight can capture the pawn on e3. But does that lose a knight? Do I lose my knight? No, I don't. Because when I take the pawn, if the queen recaptures, I will pin his queen against his king. And now you can see the benefits of creating those three pawn islands and causing mayhem amongst the white position. And I hope you found that instructive on how to dismantle the white position there. So I just retreat my knight. Now, I could have retreated my knight to d4, but that's not the name of the game. The name of the game has always been that pawn that I told you about on g3. That's a living target, that pawn on g3. If he pushes it at some stage, well then he wants to take my knight. But you see, the pressure of attacking my knight, it just goes to show the immense pressure that he's under. But I see that if I move my knight back to d4 and attack his queen, I can then play the powerful move f5, attacking a pawn to bishop 4, yes, attacking the knight and the bishop, right? And that will win a piece, a jolly good piece. Now, if you're a piece up, that's a hell of a lot in chess. So now I've already won a pawn. I've already broken his pawn structure apart. His pieces are displaced, attacking nothing. His rook on the c-file does absolutely nothing. Whereas now we find that if the pawn takes one of these pieces, and it surely will, then the f-file becomes open for the black rook. So all the black pieces will be in play. Right, so do we take the knight or do we take the bishop? Well, we'll take the knight because he can be a real philanderer and cause all sorts of trouble. The bishop does no damage. If he ever gets a check, I can just go in the corner, and from here on end, the game is basically over. There's a little bit of care involved here in this position, and by care I mean in this position, if black was to say rook check, and then king moves, white king moves and rook takes pawn on b2, well, have a look at the white rook. From being stupid, in a stupid position, it can go from c4 down to c8 and pin my queen against my king. Oh no, I've lost my queen. Then I've done the Botez Gambit. We all know what the Botez Gambit is. As Eric Rosen says, that's when Eric Botez blunders her queen, right? So, but he calls it the Botez Gambit. It's sort of a bit of a chess joke on YouTube now, the old Botez Gambit. But I'm not going to play the Botez Gambit. I'm not interested in that nonsense. I could just retreat my knight. He could play rook to c8 anyway. So how about we just play e5 and fix our knight on a good square. So the knight's now fixed. Admittedly, the bishop hasn't got a great amount of mobility, but we prevent any checks and we can just hold our game. We take with the bishop because in that way there's no queen check on d4. And all white can do is just sit back there and wait for all white can do is wait for black to come up with a winning line with the extra material and just slowly win the game. So he threatens a pawn. We just ignore that. We play queen to e2 and just e7, I should say. Hold the pawn. Queen's protected by the bishop. He gives me a check. My knight is so well placed that he can't pin my queen against my king if I play queen at f7. But I can move to a black square. But do I want to? That's the big question. Do I really want to? Can I give him that pawn? I think we can just give him that pawn. So we're going to play queen to f7. He can't pin my queen against my king because the knight covers the e6 square. So, but he can capture the pawn on e5. There was a trap there, queen checks. If queen takes pawn, queen checks, and causes a bit of disruption in his position. But as he's threatening absolutely nothing, we can just take that pawn off. And so now we've got 2, 4, 5 pawns against 4 pawns. So first we outplayed him, caused the 3 pawn islands. Then we won a piece with a pawn fork. Then after dismantling his position, and now he's trying to get some play now with h5 and probably weakening my king, hoping to get some sort of checking line, right? But I can play h5. h5. I can play h5. But is it good? I'll play h5 because I like the idea that if he's going to push his pawns forwards, I'll play that game with him if he wants to play that kind of game. But I'll do all that on my terms, not his terms. Now he wants to play that g5 move, g4 move, I should say. I'm going to play queen back to f2, f7. And the point being that if he plays g5, I can play queen f4 check. Right, so now I can get, he plays there, so I can play king to rook 2 if I want to. But firstly, why not go and grab a check, just see what he does. He's got to worry about a few things here after that check. Now I can play the knight back here. I'm threatening that pawn on g3. Remember that pawn I told you about on g3? This can be under a lot of pressure. He's got to check. Okay, he's got to check. If his queen gets too far away from his king, he could be in an awful mess. As he takes the pawn. Now, can I play bishop here and attack his queen? That's the big question. He hasn't got a check. Now, I'm threatening to blast his king open with queen takes pawn check. And I should win in less than 43 seconds. And I think that's been an instructive game. We're playing Kaliga, 1979. He's from the Czech Republic. And he is a good player. Well, there's a check. Sure, that hurts. Here's another check with the bishop. And if he moves to f2, is checkmate in one move, as you can see. Now he pushes the pawn. Well, I just take that with check. It's protected by the knight. And now he moves his king in the corner. Well, queen takes pawn check. And now he changes queens. It's forced. Unless he wants to walk into checkmate. And then I just win the endgame really, really quickly. He can see that I've been playing slow, but now he's going to find out how I play fast. Now I've got a minimum of a draw. Not a good move. I'll let his king out a bit, but I'm going to check him. I don't want his king out. It's on my knight. I'll remove my knight. Now I've got to push my pawns really, really quickly, get a queen and checkmate him. Or I can mate him with these, with the material that's on the board. King up, just supporting the knight. And off we go. Pawn race. Here we come. There's a check. We win a bishop. That's gone. That gets rid of all that nonsense. Knight here. Now he's in the mating net, hopefully. Bishop check. Keep him in the mating net. King up. He's still in the mating net. Bishop here. He can move backwards and forwards on those two squares. So all I've got to do is checkmate him now. Push. check, 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 and mate. And I won by checkmate. There we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed that game. We won with 7/100ths of a second to win the game. So 2 mistakes, no blunders, and no missed wins. Right, so there's no missed wins. So in other words, we found most of it. So I didn't have any blunders in that game. So that's pretty good. Okay, so was he a good sport? Of course he's a good sport. He let me win. So, oh, I got 79 rating points out of that. I went up to 2110. Oh, that's good. I'm over 2100. Right, so let's play a new game. 10 minutes, standard, and right. Play. Now, if anybody comes into the channel and they want a game and they'd like to play a game on chess.com, well, certainly go in there and challenge me or give me your handle and I will send a challenge out to you and we'll see how it goes. Now I'm playing Klaus Holig, 2116 from France. Now, he'd be a very, very good player, so I'm in danger here. If I play knight c6, it's almost like playing a Bogo Indian as black. Or he's playing like a Bogo Indian against my system with the extra move in hand. I don't like that. That'd be pretty scary. So it's a dangerous setup he's got. I just play the logical move. Don't like locking my bishop in at this stage, but I think it's probably good to just get a solid game and try to build my position with, well, if he takes that knight, I suppose I could always, yeah, that's not too bad. I'm thinking if he ever takes that knight, well then I'll get the 2 bishops or something. We'll just see what happens. His pieces are much better placed than mine. But he's playing fast and he thinks if he plays fast he'll win faster or something. I don't know. But if I play bishop here, I'm simply threatening knight takes knight. And I've completed my development. My back rank is clear on the queen side. The queen is now connected to the castle. Everything is solid. If he takes the bishop, well, my bishop on the white squares is the worst bishop in the world. So will he help me and take the worst bishop in the world with his good knight? That's the question. And if he doesn't, I'm going to take his knight anyway. So in other words, yes, he's made 1, 2, 3 moves with his knight to take my bad bishop, which I've only made 1 move with. So I've gained a lot in the opening. Okay, now in this position, I've got to work out a plan on how to improve my position. I'd like to play e4 or something like that. I can play a6. That stops some penetration later. Or have I got a better... Yeah, I'll play a6, then I can play e4. Play a6. He might just like the 2 bishops. Now, he's got a good game. My problem is I can't get my other bishop out now. Let's see now. I'm trying to work out where I should go with my knight. I want to find out a way that I can get my bishop working. I can castle, but it could be long-term problems there. Well, that's a natural move, I suppose. What it does do is it takes control of the centre. And remember, I've got knights, and as I've said in other videos, and other players would have told you as well, in open position, bishops are strong, and in closed positions, knights can be better than bishops. Not always, but in closed positions, you see now he correctly assesses that he wants to open the position. So it would be really wrong of me to play pawn takes pawn here, because that would bring his rook and open up a file for him and his active pieces. I need to close the position as much as possible. So logic tells me that maybe I should be playing e4. It's not easy. Chess is not an easy game. But I think I've got to play that. f3 is very weakening. I've got to play that. So he played the correct move. He's slightly opened up the white squares. You see that my f5 square here. Now he makes another decision to try to have an open game. Right, well, I'm going to take that off. If I push my pawn to bishop 4, I've just got too many holes on the white squares. So I'm going to take that pawn off. I might have to castle queenside here, but I'll assess the position as it goes along. But my plan might be, I'm not sure yet, to try to play knight to f5 with the idea of d4, maybe knight e6. Target this e-pawn. But one way or the other, I have to do something. I can't just sit here on my backside and just hope that he's going to blunder, because he's 2,116 and Klaus Holig is a good player. Okay, well, the logical move in this position is to target this e-pawn. Now, if I play d4 straight away, there's no way I can manoeuvre my knight to a decent square. But here I can play knight to f5, threatening knight takes e6. Okay. I've got to be really careful here, because I've got to find a way to be able to maneuver around in such a fashion that I can extricate the pin. Yeah, I saw the pin coming. I've got to extricate the pin. At the moment, the pin is not a threat. Now, I can play h4. That's not a bad idea, h4. There you go. h5, we should say. The whole idea is he's pinning my knight against my queen. It's extremely dangerous. If he's able to consolidate his position, then e4 would win the game. And he knows that, and I know that, so I've got to play very, very cautiously here. So, firstly, what I'm doing is I want his bishop to go back to h3. If you're going to play this line, buddy, then you're going to go in with all the complications that surround it. Right? He takes it. Well, I thought bishop h3 going in for those other complications would be better. I'll take back with the queen. Now, if I play pawn takes pawn, he recovers and he takes the pawn back. Okay? And, yeah, well, that's not bad. That's not too bad for me. But I do prefer, if I play queen d2, he can play knight to c6. That's a good move, buddy. It's a good move. I'm going to play queen to g5. Now, the point of this move is that I don't take the pawn, but if he takes the pawn, his pawns are busted, right? So we're attacking pawn structure again, just like in the last game. The idea is that if we can change queens, our knight can go from c6 to b4 and attack 2 pawns at once and get some sort of position. Also, there's another variation too, and that is that I can, or another plan as well, I'm looking at c5 and bishop checks, freeing my game, and I'm also looking at f6 to kill his bishop's long diagonal off and try to fortify my position. Right, now it would be amiss of me to just go and take that pawn off, right, in this position. It'd be amiss of me to push my pawn. However, I can complicate things in this position. How do I complicate things? I can play knight to b4. Now, I don't know how accurate this is, but I'm going to have a go at it because it's a critical position. Why? Because it's a critical position. Okay, so I'm threatening knight takes d pawn. Okay, now if he plays knight takes pawn on d5, I can take his knight off, and when he recaptures with his e-pawn, he's a pawn up, but until I castle queenside. And then my rook is attacking the d-pawn, and the position falls there, and he's left with an isolated backward d-pawn. Right? I hope I'm not being too technical, but that's what the plan is. If he plays pawn takes pawn, I will just simply castle and attack both pawns. My rook on the d8 file will be attacking the pawn on d5, and the knight will be attacking the pawn on d3. Right? So I'll be trying to activate my castles as fast as possible in a rook and pawn endgame, or a rook and knight and pawn endgame. And I can't stress strongly enough just how important it is to activate your castles. And there we go. Now in this position, I could play knight takes pawn, but he would knight takes pawn on d3, but that would be an inaccuracy because he would be left with the knight on d5, and he's coming down with a big check on c7. So the correct move is knight takes knight, as we prepared, and when he recaptures, just simply castles and then recapture the pawn on d5. Right? So now we've arrived at this position. And this is the position we played for. It's more of a counter game than a outright attacking game. It's a lot of toing and throwing and whatever. Okay, now in a position like this, rook takes pawn looks like the natural move. If I play rook takes pawn, he can play rook checks. So is rook takes pawn the correct move in the position? I put it to you that it probably isn't. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is, I can see rook takes pawn is a good move, but I'm looking for a better move. I'm always looking for a better move. So how about rook to h5? Now that activates a rook that is basically a dead rook, and it threatens rook takes pawn. Right? Rook takes the d pawn. And I'd have my castles doubled in the middle. Active castles. Now, if he plays rook e5, I could take the rook and then take the pawn. And then we've got a very, very different type of game. However, I've got another move. And that if he plays rook e5, which I'm examining, I can play rook on the 8th file, rook on d8 takes d5. Right? And be satisfied with having recovered my pawn with a roughly equal game and access to be able to play king d7 and fortify my position. In this position, I think that's a weak move that he played, and now I can play rook on the h file takes d, right? Now we have 6 pawns each, 2, 4, 6 pawns each. He has 3 pawn islands. We're going to get back to this pawn islands business, right? And now what about rook takes pawn? Surely we've just won a pawn. And now we have got extra material. Now we're going into an endgame with material up. So the first thing we do is we fix our pawns on the opposite colour squares to his bishop. Remember, we've got a 3-3 pawn structure over there. We've got a 3-2 pawn structure over there. So we must, to win, we have to mobilise our queen pawns. Okay, so here, what do? My bishop's tied down. I'll play king up. I'll play king up again, because the only place he can penetrate is on the d5 square. Other than that, he can't penetrate my position. My position is impregnable. He's got a problem here. That is, 2 of his pawns, the pawn on h2 and f4, are on the wrong colour square. If I allow him to take my pawn in this position, I will have double pawns. So I must take his pawn. Okay, so now I must move my king up here to control the centre. You see how dominant my king is with an extra pawn on the board. And he's got a weakness on f4 that he's going to have to defend. My plan is this. My plan is to divert him, divert his play from the king side, and push the pawn, the extra pawn, through on the queen side, threatening to go for a queen. And by doing so, then enable my king to get into his king side and tear it apart and dismantle it and to take the last of his pawns. And he understands that, and that's why he resigned. I hope you really enjoyed those 2 games. And with that, I'm going to end this session. And I hope you found those 2 10-minute games very instructive. I did say that I'll play for longer. I might play one more game. Yeah, I'll stick to my word, and I'll play one more game. G'day, Strobex. Thank you for the stream. Strobex is here now. My friends from England are coming in. So I might just continue now that Strobex is online, because he's a good friend of the channel. And we respect Strobex. Strobex, we're going to put this game on YouTube. There's a game that you might have missed, the previous game. You'll probably find it very instructive. I've slowed down. I've played 10-minute games against decent players, and I've showed you how I'm thinking and how I dismantle, and the techniques I use to dismantle, I use that word, my opponent's positions. So now I'm going to play another game. I'm looking for an opponent. Yes, I'll give you the link to YouTube. I'll put that up now, I suppose I can. If you go into YouTube, wait a second. Oh, Inferno Town. It's hard to learn chess. Inferno Town. I'll give you a private lesson if you want one. Just after this game. So I'm playing Kushmandetamitu. Kushmandetamimu. My goodness gracious, from Albania. Okay, well, in this position, I'm just going to play. I'll go for the black squares. He's going for the white squares by fee and shadowing, so I'll go for the black squares as a countenance, right? Okay. So now I'll just get my pieces out. I can play e6, which is a quiet move, just to recover the pawn. Or I can play knight f3. That's like a reversed Queen's Gambit. Right. After the game, Oh, thank you very much, Strobex. I'm going to add you as a friend on chess.com, by the way. Now, he's played b4, and his plan is to hold his pawn on c5. So I'm going to play a5 and try to dismantle the pawn. So I'll take the pawn off. And play e6. Okay, my plan is to play b3 and to undermine the pawn on c5. Here it comes. Right, so now we have almost like a reversed Queen's Gambit where I'm a move behind, but he's chosen a weak system. And you can see all the holes in his position on b2, c3, and maybe d4. They're all those black squares, a6 and a3 and whatever. And what I'm doing is I've got my bishop on f8, trying to dismantle his pawn structure on b4 and c5. And I'm using the b6 move I just played as a wedge to sort of give him an uppercut. So he's given me a plan. By the way he's played this game, he's given me a plan. You can see his bishop on g2 is no way of undermining my centre, because there's no pawn thrust that can undermine my centre at this stage. e4 would be a bold challenge, admittedly. We'll just recapture that pawn. And he takes. Now if I take that pawn, I've got a better pawn chain than what he's got. He's got an isolated A pawn, right? Unless he's a genius and he can move it. And he's got an isolated A pawn, and I've got a pawn chain of 5 pawns. So he's created a pawn island or a target there on the A file. It can be strong if he pushes it through and supports it in a clever way. It could be strong. Bishop to b2 could be a harassment move. I really need to castle. I've got a trap there for him. I've worked out a trap. I can play knight e4 And if he plays bishop b2, I can play queen to b6 and cause him havoc down there on his f2 square, but he busts my kingside. I don't want him to bust my kingside. I think I'll simply castle and do all the nasty stuff later. My bishop on c8 is my worst piece. And, well, he plays there. That doesn't do anything to upset me. I like the idea of just playing h6 and recapturing with the queen dominating all the black squares. And he allows me to do that. He's now threatening e4 to try to dismantle the position. I've got a choice here. I've got several choices. I've got bishop to h8. I've got to activate that bishop there. That's one choice. I don't know if that's the best move, but I'm just playing a bit faster. He still wants to play e4 and free his game. I can play knight to c6, but then he can attack two pieces along the c file. I might lose a piece. I've got to be a bit cautious. I can pin his knight and slow him down a little bit. It's not easy to find the correct move here. This is a very difficult situation. I'll try knight to d7. It's probably wrong. Oh, he's played it passively. Play passively in chess, you'll get done, my friend. Well, if he's playing passively, I'm playing actively. I'm going to play bishop to... That's a bit funny, isn't it? Just play knight e5. I've got good pawn chain. I've got a sound position. I'm just going to put all my pieces on the right squares. I've got 4 minutes. He's trying to just play fast. He might think I'm slow because I'm talking. He doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know I'm talking. But my plan is now to play bishop c5, bishop c4, and try to punish his play. Play rook there. Attack his queen. Remember, he's got an isolated A pawn. In some variations, that could be very damaging for him. It looks like my pieces are starting to become more and more active with every move. Rook takes rook. Double up on the pawn. So how does he hold that pawn? If he can hold that pawn, he's a better man than I am. My plan is to take that pawn with the bishop and allow him to pin my bishop. And then have the two bishops in the endgame with the pawn up and drive the d-pawn through and win the game. So that's my plan. A long-term plan. Might be 15, 20 moves deep. I don't know how I'm going to execute it, but it's a structural plan that I've worked out. We'll see how this goes. As I say, he's 2,176, and he's to be respected. He's no fool. Now he's got all sorts of pin moves here. I don't want to play his silly games. I'm going to retreat my bishop, right, and threaten to take the A pawn. I don't want to play his silly games. Not interested, buddy. These are his silly little counterplay games. I'm not interested in that. Right. Now, my plan was to play bishop takes pawn, right? Remember I said that. That was my plan. Right. And now I can pin his knight against his castle. Can you see that? Now we take his knight and we double his pawns. So now we've got an extra pawn and he's got double pawns. So I play rook here. I can now play bishop b3 and free my castle from the pin. I couldn't play rook a6 and pin it because he would have been able to find a move to hold his position. I'll offer the change of bishops. I don't mind changing bishops in this position because I've got a stronger rook and pawn endgame. He's got a weakness on e5 on my side of the board. Perhaps I could surround that pawn and win that pawn in a rook and pawn endgame with rook takes. It'd be bad to take with the pawn and dismantle my pawn structure. My pawn structure is far superior to his pawn structure. He's lost another pawn. So now he's two pawns down with 2 pawn islands. And I've talked about that before in this video. I protect that pawn, protect my structure. And then once I've protected my structure, I can take everything off. So I can capture that. And now he wants to play h5. I can accompany him here. I'll help him weaken his pawn structure if he wants to. Right, so now I've got no weaknesses and I'm free to start building my position. So I can get a plan going, right? My plan is to push my d-pawn through and start getting a queen and then dismantle him. Oh, he sees that. Well played. Check. He's missed that one. And now everything falls into place. Another pawn falls. He should resign here. If I was 2176 like him, I would resign. This is just totally dead. So now I play king hits rook. He's got no squares for his rook, no active squares or anything. Got no good moves. And now rook takes pawn. Check, keeping my pawn chain alive. Rook back, threaten that pawn. So now I've got a plan if he plays, I've always got a plan. If he plays rook a7 check, I'll give him a check, that's my plan. My plan's to go for a queen. If we get to a rook and pawn endgame, he's a dead duck. So I put my rook behind my passed pawn so I can push it through. It's just very basic stuff. Push it down there. And now we know his rook can never move. So I can play king up, king up. I'll show you something. If I play king here, he'll check me. Because he'll see a checkmate. Now, where's the checkmate, you might say? Well, if I play king here to g5, rook checkmates. But guess what? I knew that 3 moves ago. So I'm just going to go here, make him look silly. He's got to go back again. And then I just fortify my pawn structure. His rook can't move. I play king up, supported by my castle. His rook still can't move. Okay, and rook takes pawn. We've got another pawn. And my pawn structure remains intact. Now I've got 4 against 3. He tries to hold that pawn. Well, I play king up. There's no mucking around here. King across there, attack his pawn. Passed pawns must be pushed. I've got 2 pawns here, 2 passed pawns. Just check him. Oh, hold on, don't even need to. Yeah, I can check him there. Check him with a pawn. I've got 1 minute 15 to finish him off. Push the pawns forwards. 2 pawns on the 6th rank are equal to a castle. As you can see, he's got to go to the back rank now. What does he do? I push the pawn forwards. His rook's trapped in the box. In this box from there's a little box there. His rook's trapped. So king up and attack his rook, which is trapped. Nowhere to go. Push a pawn on. His rook's in the box. His king's on the back rank. 2 pawns tearing down the middle of the board down his throat. And he should resign. I've got 1 minute and 4 seconds left. It's all over bar the shouting. Philosophy legend, my friend, how are you going? Inferno Town, is it true in Russian chess the queen can do a knight move once per game? I don't know about that. I thought Russian chess was the same as our chess. And that is, you can't take that pawn, it's checkmate. I'm threatening checkmate. And I've got 47 seconds to mate him. There he goes, he's on the run. He's fighting to the last pawn. He's got no pieces left. I give him another check. Push a pawn. Make a queen. Push a pawn. Make a queen. Think I should be able to checkmate him with all those pieces, don't you? There's a check. There's a piece of check, it might be mate. There's a castle check. There's a queen check. I just want all the pieces working together in combination. And a checkmate. Okay, so all my castles and queens, all came together to make mate. I'm going to decline that game there. What I would like to do now is I'd like to say to my good friend, Philosophy Legend and the Inferno Town, and Strobex, of course, my good friend Strobex, if you'd like to have a game with me now, if one of you would like to have a game and challenge me, I'm open to my good friends and having a game with you. So what do you think? 5 minutes, Strobex? I've been playing 10-minute games. I just played 3 10-minute games. So would a 5-minute game be okay for you? I don't want to go too fast. If you want a 3-minute game, I'll play a 3-minute game. Sure, so 5 minutes? Okay, just send me a challenge. Or I can send you one. And Philosophy, you're next online, okay. So make them 5-minute games. So we're playing Strobex first, are we? Accepting Strobex's game. All right, then Strobex 1708 from the United States, a good friend of the channel. follows the channel. Right, E4, C5. The player's a Sicilian. Strobex is a handy player. At a club, in an Australian chess club with a rating like that, 1708, you would be a good B grade player. Maybe play bottom board for A grade occasionally in inter-club matches. So Strobex is a decent player. He knows the fundamentals of the game. What I'm doing here is I'm just developing my pieces and trying to coordinate them and fight for black squares. I don't know how we got rid of the white bishops, but I'm very happy about that. I'll play knight to d4, might be a bit too premature. How about rook b8? The point is, what I'd like to play in this position, I'd like to play b5 and b4. So let's prepare b4. Boom! I got there. Okay. So in this position here, we now have black's got a spatial advantage, but how does black capitalise on that? Well, he doesn't, does he? It's not straight away. I can see one plan. I don't know whether it's a faulty plan or not. I don't want to do a Basil faulty here. It might be a faulty plan. Oh, castle, then you can play queen. Let's see now. Oh, castle. It's a natural move. My plans are to occupy those black squares somehow, or to try to get some play against that C pawn, that base pawn down there. Yeah. That's what I was expecting. So I'm going to play knight d4. Yeah. So in this position, I'm happy to change bishops. I want to just got to work out what to do here. I have to be a bit careful because he could be planning some nasty stuff. That's where I wanted to go. I want to attack that pawn. That was my plan, wasn't it? I'm changing plans midstream. This is not good for me to change plans midstream. I'm going to play f5 because I don't want him penetrating. Right, so I'll take that. Notice his knight can't go back to e3. Okay, so his knight can't go to e3. It can't do anything there. So now I can power on with my plan. My little plan. Rook c5. That sort of gives me a chance to swing my castle over to the king's side if I have to. But at the same time, I can double get the pressure going on the pawn structure over there. I did think about rook c6. I don't know. Yes, he's playing well, the old Strobex. He's playing well. So now I've got a rook on the 7th. I'm trying to find out a way to checkmate him. Not easy. He's a great player. I'm pushing that pawn there, connecting my pawns in the centre. Takes him a while to push his B pawn. I could probably get a block on that eventually. If I can go in there and snaffle his D pawn, or play Queen E7, Knight H5 and get an attack on his king, but then I'll be in front, well in front. He can't attack me on the back rank, but I'm looking if I can attack 2 pawns here at the same time. I can follow up with Rook C7 and Rook B7. So that way I stop any queen moves like Queen to B6 with the idea of Rook to A7, pinning my queen against my king. And I'm thinking 3 or 4 moves in front and preparing Rook B7, snaffling his B pawn. So the big question is, from here, can I transfer the weight of my position? Oh, he's on the D pawn. So we'll chase him off the D pawn by just playing that Rook B7 plan. He's probably threatening G4 and trying to crash open my pawn structure. But he hasn't got time to do it. His plan's right, but he's just behind on time. He wants to play Queen D5 now and then play Knight takes pawn. But it's important for me to protect, take with that rook, protect my back. I can now go for his back rank. If I go there, rook takes rook, and he pins my queen against my king. So we've got pressure and counter pressure here. But rook hits queen. I can always throw my rook back anytime I like. So kick his rook off there. And now I'm attacking his queen inadvertently. I can play rook to the 7th. So now I'm threatening to take his queen, and I've got a rook on the 7th rank getting ready to checkmate him. Now, how do we do that? Well, he hasn't got any threats. We'll move our knight over to the king side. Normally, knights, I say all the time, you shouldn't put knights on the side of the board. But again, I always also say look for the exception, because you can't just sit here and just hope that everything is going to be all right. So he can't checkmate me on F8 because of, but I'm coming in to checkmate him. So you got to check. He's changed queens. We'll take his knight. We'll go and try to grab his rook, his pawn. We'll take his pawn. Rook takes pawn check. Rook there. Rook check. Rook check. Rook takes rook. Rook back. Push. Rook takes rook. Push. Rook takes. Push. Push. King back, king up. Oh, he won on time. Well played, my friend. Philosophy Legend, you're up. You're up. No, it's okay, Strobex. It's all about me trying to explain the game. It's not about winning or losing. And what I was doing was I showed people how to get the one game against you. And so I'm not upset about losing the game. I'm happy for you. You played well. The clock is part of the game, and you were quite correct in using the clock to your advantage. So, great game, Strobex. Thumbs up for Strobex. And now Philosophy Legend on Pipe and Banjo on chess.com. Okay, here we go. We're looking for boom, 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 boom. Pipe and Banjo. Okay, pipe and banjo. Here he is. Challenge. 5-minute game. And right. Play. There we go. Pipe and banjo. You've been challenged, pipe and banjo. I sent you a challenge. Ah, here he is. He's up. Pipe and banjo 670 rating, and he is from the United Kingdom. So just play the centre counter. The idea is to just play against the centre, I suppose. Recapture of the queen. All theory so far. It's the Scandinavian defence, Mises cottage variation. So play queen to a5. That's what most people play. I remember watching my good friend Grandmaster Ian Rogers play this line in a couple of his games. He studied the centre counter in depth at one stage and on his way to being up over 2600. Played a few good games. So if you want to know how to play the centre counter for black, you can always go and have a look at Grandmaster Rogers' games and look up centre counter. Do a Google search and you'll find some of his games. Played it for a little while. Okay. Should I play a good move or a bad move? Okay, I'll play a bad move. I'm trying to target the d4 square. Okay. It's a bit tricky. What if I just rip off your knight? Oh, pipe and banjo and castles. Oh, you got that, have you? Oh, you devil. The old pipe and banjo, he's got better development. I'm a bit cheeky. Castles looks a bit dangerous. What about rook d8? I did it, did I? I castled by accident. I was going to play rook to d8. You know, I castled. Stuck with it now, I've castled. Oh, chess is a tricky game. All right then. I've got to take that knight. I've got no choice here. Left me with absolutely no choice. And I'll take the pawn on d4. what I really don't like is that my lack of development. That's what I don't like about the position. Pipe and banjo, you playing well. 670 rating. Oh my goodness. You're playing better than that. Gave me a check. What's the point of that? It just helps me get a tempo, and I'm threatening your bishop. And I develop my bishop. So I can't see the point of that move. That's your 670 rating coming in. You were playing above yourself for a while there. Then you came up with that move. So Philosophy Legend or Inferno Town or whoever it is there that's watching the channel, if you would like to offer Pipe and Banjo a few tips on what you think he should play, you can put your moves in the chat box and see if you can come up with a move for him. A few suggestions. Oh, look at this, he's threatening something. The deadly Pipe and Banjo. He's up to no good. Oh, and what a good threat that is too, Pipe. Pipe, Banjo. What a good threat that move is. I'm going to play Queen to C5. Is that correct? I've got to be careful. I know what he's threatening. He wants to come down here, Queen to A7. He's a clever fox. It's not a bad idea. Pipe and Banjo comes up with some good ideas sometimes, doesn't he? Eh? Let's see now. What should we play here? Rook D6 looks all right, but my rook's sort of in a funny old position. Yeah, it's a tricky position. Simply C5. I don't like that move, but I don't like it. I actually despise playing that move. I really do. But I want to get quick development. I want to play Bishop E7 and rook on the H file to D8. So I despise playing that move. Gives you a game. It's probably not the right move. But I was looking at my clock and I wasn't happy. Okay. Well, I can see that you've caused me a few problems, and I think the problems are going to go away as your clock gets closer to 00. Ah, I'll just get my pieces working. I don't care. I could have taken your bishop there, but I'm more concerned to having a nice safe king. Right, there we go. That would be dangerous, wouldn't it? Okay. Just protect the pawn with check and hold everything. And we went on time. Yeah. But you played really well. Pipe and Banjo, please, I take my hat off to Pipe and Banjo. 670 rating. You've got to have a look at the game and what actually transpired there. And Pipe and Banjo played well. Oh, Philosophy Legends, Pipe and Banjo, he says. Oh, God. Yeah, but that he played well for that rating. If his rating 670, he played really well. Philosophy, there's no doubt whatsoever. Do you want to play a 10-minute game, Philosophy Legend? And then we'll talk more about your game and I'll tell you what choices and moves you have. If Philosophy wants to play a 10-minute game, I'll play that 10-minute game with him because it's a good lesson for beginner players. Right? Okay, I'll give you a game for 10 minutes, right? And then that'll be the end of this session. And then I'll have a break for a while, half hour or so. And then I'll come back. Or 15 minutes, I'll have a break, get a cup of tea, and then I'll come back and kick off the channel again. So we'll just have a 10-minute break or something. Anyway, so I've got to play the old Pipe and Banjo. Pipe and Banjo, where is he? Oh, wait a second. One thing I've got to do here, Strobex wants to be friends. I've got to tick yes. Strobex is in there as a friend. Right, so live chess, here we go. I want to challenge Pipe and Banjo. Pipe and Banjo. Play 10-minute game. And Pipe and Banjo. I wonder what he does. Oh, where's Pipe and Banjo? Found him last time. I must. Yeah, there he is. So just challenge him. I slowed it down for you so it makes it. Do you want to be white or black, Pipe and Banjo? Philosophy? Do you want to be black or white? What colour would you like? I'll give you the choice. Black or white? What colour do you want? Okay. So I'm playing black. Okay. Challenge is there. Play a 10-minute rapid game with Pipe and Banjo, and Pipe and Banjo has the white pieces. And he played really well last game. So I'm not going to play the centre counter this time. I'll play something different. I'll just do what you're doing. I'm going to play E5. And what I'll also do is I'll rate your moves out of 10. I'll just give you a score out of 10 for your moves and tell you why, if you make a bad move, why I think you make a bad move. Well, you get 10 out of 10 for that move. Now just defend that pawn that you're attacking. Sun's gone down. Might have to turn the light on in here. What's the light? What's it like? Oh, it's not too bad. Okay. I'll turn the light on. There, eh? What do we do here? Take that off. Sun's coming back out. Okay, rightio. 10 out of 10 for that move. Well done, Pipe and Banjo. Now, what do we do here? I'm not considering pushing my D pawn because you just play knight takes knight, you get a lovely game. I like the idea of doing this. Just getting my bishop working. Oh, I just thought of something else. There's a good little trick line there that for beginners. I'll just play queen here now. They say you should never move your queen out too early. Oh, you'll move bishop to king 3. I'll give you a 9 out of 10 for that. Oh, there we go. You just lost a piece. You didn't examine all captures for your opponent. So you get 0 for that move because of just simply bishop takes knight. So the piece was undefended. Your correct move for you in that position was to play pawn to bishop 3 to support your piece in the middle of the board. So when your knight was here where my bishop is, you should have pushed your pawn next to your queen 1 square forwards to support your knight and support your centre to bind it together. I can take the bishop. So there we go. I've just played queen g5 and I'm just threatening a pawn with check and threatening your bishop. I had to be a bit careful there because it was easy to sort of go astray. I could have taken the pawn on b2, so queen takes pawn, threatening your castle, but I didn't like your move queen to d5, queen to d, whatever it is. Anyway, what to do here? I think I should just play knight there and get my pieces working. Because I've got an extra piece and logic tells me I should really not take any chances when I'm a piece up. I should just develop my pieces and get castle, put my king in safety and do all those basic moves. Now I could castle in this position and whereas I'm also being knight here. That attacks the queen, attacks the bishop, it also stops the bishop takes pawn check. So it serves several functions. And it also blocks the double pawns on the e-file. So it's not a bad move. And if I can exchange my knight for your bishop, the way I see it is that I've reduced the amount of material on the board so that my extra piece that I have becomes even more formidable as a weapon, having all the extra material. So queen c3, that's a logical move. I'll take your bishop. And you really have to recapture that. That's right. Now you're threatening queen takes pawn check. Now I've got a choice. I can just castle and protect my pawn, but examine all checks and captures. When you see a good move, look for a better move. Well, why not just, oh look at that. He's got my c pawn. A dirty, dirty dog. I'll take the pawn with check. And I'll castle. I'll just protect that pawn. I'm not happy with my game at the moment. Not happy, because it could have been a lot better. But it's all right. I didn't play particularly well in this game. 10 out of 10, pipe and banjo. He's playing well. But actually, no, I'll give you 9 out of 10 because I think queen takes c pawn was actually better. Queen takes c pawn was probably better. I play c6. Not a great move, but it's okay. It stops your knight going into d5. That's why I think you should have taken the c pawn. Queen takes c7 was the correct move, and that would have been 10 out of 10. But full credit to you, pipe and banjo. The previous game that you played was really above your rating, right? So yeah, you should be commended on that effort. Okay, now you had the rook on your f-file attacking my f2 pawn, and you've moved it there to e1. Now, wouldn't it be more logical, if you think about it, to have moved the other castle onto that square? So you had a choice of which castle to move on to hit my queen. So if you would have moved the other castle on the A file to hit my queen, you would have had two centralised rooks exerting pressure on the F file and the E file. Okay? So that's always a big decision for players, particularly beginners. Oh, which rook do I move? Right? So what you had to assess was, firstly, your rook on f1 square next to your king was already threatening my pawn on bishop 2. So that made more sense than what you played. So with that, I'll just retreat my queen to h3, so I'm right out of the firing line. I don't want to be in the firing line. And the reason why I moved it there is that I'd like to play d5. And if you play e5, I can play d5. And then if you take en passant, I can recapture with the queen on d6. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking 3 moves ahead there. I'm thinking if you push your pawn forwards, then I can play pawn hits queen in the middle, pawn to d5. And then if you take en passant, on passing, and you know the on passing rule, well then I can take, recapture queen takes d6 and hold my knight. That's the plan. In this position, I'm happy to give you a pawn back to free my game. I have the extra materials. I'm happy to give you a pawn back to free my game. Now, if I move my bishop to pin your knight, you would give me a check and you would win a piece. So I must recapture the knight. That's forced. Your last move was a 10 out of 10. Now, this is an important decision. Correct. If your castle had taken that pawn, I could have pinned your castle against your queen with bishop to e6, and you would have lost the exchange and the game would have ended much faster. As it is now, I'm going to move my bishop over there and threaten your castle. I could threaten your queen. There you go. So just attacking your queen. I calculated that I'm happy to, I might make a bit of hard work of it, but I'm happy to just, I've got to be careful here. There's a trap there. I see a trap. Who's trapping who? I'll hit your queen. I was wondering whether you could have played queen e7 and then if I'd taken the pawn, you could have played rook d8, but I did have g6 to stop the checkmate. So I had a resource. So I'm going to take that pawn off. And now that, as long as I can open the back rank and play queen g7 and support that structure there, I should be able to coordinate my castle and my bishop and my queen to start causing trouble to either your queen side pawns or your king. I need my bishop on a better square to actually threaten your king. I can coordinate that with queen g5, bishop d5. So that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. Say my bishop wasn't on e3, just for example. For instance, just imagine my bishop's not on the e6 square. And if I played rook takes a pawn, you could play queen takes rook check and it'd be checkmate. But the bishop's there to stop it. So it means that I can play queen, I can play rook takes pawn. I'll take a pawn off. I really would like to connect that rook with your g2 square. You're offering some resistance, but unfortunately a bishop extra is a lot of material, my dear friend. So, but you must be congratulated again for playing a solid game and being competitive. Right? It's all about being competitive. It's not whether you win or lose. It's a matter of just enjoying the game and saying, was I competitive? Did I play to the best of my ability? And you answered those questions for yourself, right? You answered those questions. Okay, well, you're just giving me a rook for nothing. That's not a very good move. That's 0 out of 10 to give me a castle for nothing. Well, I've got to take it, right? I've got to take it, mainly because I want to go and get a cup of tea. So there we go. Now you're hitting that one. Okay. Right, well, I can protect that by playing a bishop back. I'm just coordinating all my pieces. I play queen hits a pawn. So the queen and the rook are attacking the pawn on c2. Well, the correct best move was rook to c1. So I'll take that pawn off. So I've now got the, oh, I see. There's a check there. You've overlooked the check on the back rank. So examine all checks and examine all captures. And you've got to examine the checks for your opponent too. So that's the end of the game. Listen, thank you very much for dropping in and playing today. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to have a short break, right? And it's now 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I'll be back at, say, 10:20 a.m. Okay, so I'll be back in 20 minutes, right? I just thank you for your time. Thank you for dropping in. Really great to see you guys, and I hope things pick up there in Great Britain. Okay? God bless you, mate. Take care.